and you know, in a way assaulted verbally by this group of lunatics is just anathema to me. I must say I'm very hopeful, despite 20 years of us dealing with this problem. I'm very hopeful that if, you know, some of your listeners may not like the new move-on laws proposed by the government, but I've stood beside the Premier when he said these move-on laws can and will be used for these protesters. We're about at our wits' end because, look, these people are gamers. You know, they get out there, and if we're not down there observing behaviour, then they behave appallingly. The moment we send people down, and we send them down 2-3 times a week, every week, and have done so for many years, they behave like lambs. Take down that placard? Of course we will. Take down that sign? Of course we will. And then, of course, the moment we're not there, they revert to these, it's called nuisance, but I think it goes far further than that. But our powers are very limited. I mean, we can't even require them to give us their name and address. That doesn't help those poor women, and it doesn't help the clinic. But it just infuriates me. And
this comes at exactly the same time as abortion has been raised in internal your party, Liberal Party politics, and Geoff Shaw, the Independent, is saying he wants to review Victoria's abortion laws. Bernie Finn yesterday in one of the local papers saying he thinks that it's helping rapists to destroy the evidence of rape to allow abortion, and he's opposed to it in any circumstances.
Offensive lunacy. You know, both those people, you know, there is kind of a code in Parliament that was certainly there when I was there. You did not, for political or personal reasons, raise these large issues from which the community has moved on. You know, termination of pregnancy is one, capital punishment is another. We have moved beyond stirring the pot on these major divisive community issues.
Well, they
and moved
obviously
on for the better.
They don't agree.
No, they don't. And so for me, look, it makes me angry. It's just offensive that they should be saying these things.
You're a former parliamentary leader of the Liberal Party and opposition leader. Is this going to be a recurring distraction for Dennis Napthine all the way through to the state election?
Oh, Dennis will be furious. And he made that plain yesterday when he just totally dissociated himself from these comments and said these people are wrong. You know, and good on him for doing so. That's not an easy thing for a premier or a leader to do, but nevertheless he did it. And I thought, you know, Dennis, that is fantastic. No equivocation. He got up and said, bang, this is wrong. And I couldn't agree with him more. And, you know, if Bernie Finn or Geoff Shaw, no longer a member of the Liberal Party, but if they think they're helping the cause, well, then they're completely wrong.
The Herald Sun have been campaigning against what they describe as waste in local government, and they've got all sorts of examples in the paper again today, a couple of days in a row, and so many people want to raise other issues, and Daniel from Footscray is one of them. Morning, Daniel.
Good morning, John. The Lord Mayor, Robert Doyle, said we should be careful how we label the Chinese with regard to their investment, but in the minutes before that, he'd religiously vilified these anti-abortion protesters by calling it offensive lunacy. I mean, is he going to apologise for religiously vilifying them in a state where it's illegal to do so?
That's just silly. They are breaking the law. They are surrounding. Yes, they are. They are surrounding young women at the most vulnerable stage that you could imagine, and labelling them and calling them names and behaving in a way that is just totally unacceptable. And doing it on the basis of their beliefs.
You called it offensive lunacy.
Yes,
in Victoria, it's a crime to religiously vilify people, and that's what you did. These are religious protesters protesting based on their Christian belief that it's wrong to abort. So you've done it.
Whoa. They're allowed to protest. What they're not allowed to do is create those verbal assaults in the wholly offensive way they do it. They're allowed to protest. Yeah. If they were to stand there in a passive way, promulgating their message, I've got no problem. Over 20 years, they have behaved in a way which I think is offensive. It is not their protest, and don't you dare try to make it about this being a passive and a peaceful protest. Their behaviour breaches the law.
Robert, I didn't say anything about their protest. You're the one who brought up their protest as a way of avoiding the issue. The issue I raised when I first called in was that you religiously vilified them, and you've sought to avoid that.
So what we're seeing here, both Daniel and Robert, is exactly how divisive this issue is once it's given a public airing. That's exactly what the Premier says he wants to avoid, but there's just no avoiding it.
Hang on a second. Our caller here is using a word in the most euphemistic way possible. He's using the word protest, as if what they are doing is some sort of benign and non-reactive protest. That is not what they do, and that's where they cross the line.
Alrighty, Daniel, thank you for raising it. Let's move on. Michael in Richmond, good morning.
Oh, good morning. Good morning, Lord Mayor.
Good morning, Michael.